I spoke with the former president of Costa Rica, Laura Chinchilla. Laura Chinchilla, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. It's a true pleasure to be with you today.
Now, during your presidency, you hosted President Xi Jinping in Costa Rica. That was a visit in 2013 that resulted in a free trade agreement between Costa Rica and China. The countries, of course, now also share a strategic partnership. How would you say relations have evolved?
Well, trade and investment between Costa Rica and China have evolved from minimal interaction to a strong partnership, with China becoming Costa Rica's second largest trading partner. And that happens following the 2011 free trade agreement. This bilateral agreement has allowed our trade to grow at an annual rate since then of about 10% every year. So yes, it has been very important, not only in terms of how trade is growing, but also in terms of giving us the opportunity to diversify our exportable offer. So the general balance is quite positive for both countries, but especially for Costa Rica.
Now, of course, the world will be watching China's upcoming two sessions meetings. Lawmakers are expected to implement the 15th five-year plan, which emphasizes high-quality development. There'll be a big focus on things like technology, energy, and development in the digital sector as well. What are your hopes for these meetings?
Well, of course, it is going to be a very positive, very positive to hear about the kind of domestic measures that China will emphasize during those meetings, like the ones you already mentioned about incentivizing innovation policies to boost economic growth, and its commitment with strengthening the clean energy sector. We need to recognize that China is currently recognized, or is considered as one of the global leaders in terms of technological development in general, and especially in green technologies. But in addition, we will love to hear about China commitments in supporting through bilateral cooperation and also through the multilateral system with other countries, the less developed countries, in promoting their commitment with clean energies and a innovation-based development patterns.
Right, and talking about clean energy and protecting the environment, Costa Rica has also made significant progress in these sectors. In 1985, for instance, if we look at Costa Rica, it had the highest deforestation rate in the world. Well, one of the highest, I should say, losing more than 404 hectares a year. Today, forests blanket well over half of Costa Rica, making it one of the few places on Earth to revive that lost ecosystem at that time. What do you attribute to Costa Rica's success, and is there anything that other countries can take away from your experience?
Well, in first place, thank you for mentioning this and for recognizing the efforts that Costa Rica has embraced when it comes to sustainable environment. This is a task that we started even before this issue of sustainability became a global issue. Everything started around the 1970s in the past century, and it has to do basically with the national consensus that we were able to reach. Besides the policies in terms of protecting important parts of our territory, in terms of innovating on financial and fiscal instruments, we invested in education. So sustainability is, I will say, that is part of the Costa Rican DNA. Every government that is elected brings even stronger policies to continue with this path in favor of sustainability. My advice to the rest of the countries and leaders is that they don't have to choose between growing or protecting the environment. Costa Rica is the best example that you can do both.
Right, and in Costa Rica, it must have been something of a multidisciplinary approach because, as you talked about, of course, you need finance for these things. You need the right policies to be in place, and of course, you need people to be on your side as well to achieve the outcomes that you have.
Exactly. Even the private sector, of course, there are tensions. From time to time, you have these discussions about how to be more flexible in terms of the protecting the environment. But fortunately, we also have now the possibility of accessing better technology, so you cannot you don't need to sacrifice, again, the modernization or the growth of the economy in terms of protecting the environment. So that kind of integration of policies is possible, and Costa Rica is the best example of this.
Right. You mentioned a moment ago that China is now the world's largest manufacturer and exporter of new green technologies. We talk about solar, wind, and of course, electric vehicles. And Costa Rica has embraced Chinese electric vehicles. There was one headline which put it very well. It said, "To see the future of EVs, visit Costa Rica." What has made Chinese EVs so popular in Costa Rica?
Well, I will say that not only in Costa Rica, when you travel around Latin America, you will see the same kind of situation. But in our case, yes, the market for Chinese electric vehicles is growing. And I will mention especially two important, probably, elements that explain this situation. One is government incentives that promote electric mobility. And the second one is the competitiveness of the Chinese car industry, especially on electric cars. So incentives such as tax exemptions and reduced registration fees make the EVs more affordable, and it also at the same time is supporting our country's sustainability goals. In addition, again, Chinese brands offer a variety of affordable and advanced electric vehicles responding to a diverse consumer needs in our market.
Right, you mentioned Chinese competitiveness. That's the whole range and diversity of vehicles that are on offer, that are exported by China, as well as the government incentives that are offered in Costa Rica. But how big a challenge was it to set up the infrastructure to accommodate these new technologies?
Well, yes, probably that is our pending task. I am sure that when we can resolve the issue of infrastructure in terms of providing access to all the consumers of EVs in Costa Rica for example, charging systems, the market will grow even more. The government and the authorities are working on this, and I'm sure that Costa Rica will follow this path.
Now, in January, you assumed the role of president of the Club de Madrid. That's an organization that champions democracy and multilateralism. And we know that the current president of the United States, Donald Trump, is no supporter of multilateralism. And he has withdrawn this country from many key international organizations and agreements, things like the Paris Climate Accord for one. He's also withdrawn from the World Health Organization for another. And the president here has also made tariffs a centerpiece of his foreign policy in many respects. How has that affected Costa Rica?
Multilateralism is not only important in terms of guarantee peace, stability, and security in the world, we recognize that there are many reforms that must be introduced to the multilateral system so it can respond more effectively and in a timing manner. However, the opposite, I mean, destroying multilateralism will have a very high cost, not only for the world at large, but especially for small countries like Costa Rica. My country has been able to become in a kind of success story during the last years in terms of economic modernization and growth, in terms of human development, in terms of democracy and stability, thanks to the multilateral system. Now, concerning the unilateral decisions that have been taken by President Trump on tariffs, fortunately, those days we are receiving good news. Most of the products that we are exporting to the United States are going to be excluded from the new tariffs, and only a small part of those exports are going to be punished with 15% of tariffs. However, we hope that we can compete even with these new tariffs. And I will say that probably the most concerning issue is certainty. We would love to have more clearer rules, because certainty is the most important element for investors to make their decisions when they decide to come to Costa Rica.
Laura Chinchilla, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.